I almost feel like the movie that we're talking about this week doesn't classify as a horror movie, but it does. I mean, it is classified as a horror movie, but it's almost, oddly enough, and this isn't just because of the Anthony Hopkins connection, this movie to me almost feels similar to Silence of the Lambs in relationship to horror movies, if that makes any sense. To where when I watch this movie, I don't really think of this as a horror movie. Almost like a suspense movie, I guess, or maybe a thriller. But it is technically a horror movie, and we're talking about 1978's Magic, which we kind of, sort of, in a weird way, kind of covered it a little bit last year when we talked. I mean, I don't even remember what the name of that thing was that little mini documentary that we talked about that was on Shudder.
Oh, that was Primal Screen.
That was about the kind of the trailer for Magic. Here we are, like a year later, finally, because I think this has been one of the ones we've been wanting to talk about for such a long time, and we're finally getting around to it. So here it is, guys, 1978's Anthony Hopkins starring. I don't think this was his first movie, but
also starring Burgess Meredith from who played. Who's well known for Mickey from the Rocky series. So anyway, going back to Magic, let me ask you this: when was the first time you saw this film?
Actually, it wasn't that long ago. I think it was after we did like the Child's Play episode.
Really?
I think so. When we were talking about like other like killer doll type movies, and you had suggested this one.
Did I?
I think so. Yep.
Interesting. Well, I have kind of a weird history with this one. This movie...
Are you going to tell us that your mom took you to this movie in the movie theaters when you were a little kid?
You are on the right path. 1978, I would have only been 1 year old, so she did not take me to see this film. But in our basement, growing up, my parents had a bookshelf. And they had a whole bunch of books there. Obviously, it's a bookshelf. And
that makes complete sense.
Total sense, doesn't it? So, anyhow, my mother was into horror novels, and she liked a lot of, like, they had Carrie on there, and they had a few other ones that were popular in the 70s. Well, anyway, she had the novel for Magic by William Goldman. And the cover of the novel showed... So I believe this novel came out before the movie. And I think the version she had, the novel she had, was actually after the movie. You know how they re-released the book after the movie. And so, anyhow, it was just a little paperback book, and all it showed on it was a butcher knife, and it said Magic on it. And I remember horror to me goes way back for me. I mean, I've been such a horror fan since, like horror and Star Wars, for whatever reason, those two things have been like in my blood since I was born. So I remember seeing that book and just being fascinated with the butcher knife aspect. And I remember around that time she had told me the premise of Psycho. And this is like, we're talking like really, really young, probably like 4 or 5 years old. And then somehow we got to talking, and then she explained the story when I found that book and told me the story of Magic. And I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. Like, she told me about it's like kind of like Psycho. It's about this ventriloquist dummy and this guy, and basically told me the whole story. And I just was really fascinated with it. But the book was obviously too mature for me, where I wouldn't be able to read half the words or understand it. So I never read the book, but the storyline always kind of just really enthralled me. And I don't think I saw the movie until I was in high school. It was like one of those things that I just never really got around to. And then I finally did. And I don't remember it. I mean, I remember the general, concept of the film and some of the parts and whatnot. And I knew what was going to happen, I guess you could say. Watching it again these last couple of days, because I had to watch it in a couple parts, it was sort of like watching a movie for the first time, but I did remember some of it. So it was never like a movie that I watched. Like I must have watched it like once a long time ago, and it was just kind of like more like, oh yeah, I got to watch that movie because I remember that. And this was probably, yeah, like I said, like junior high, high school. I probably saw it for the first time.
Yeah, I watched it shortly after we talked about, I think it was a Child's Play episode. I think that's the only, well, no, we did Dead Silence.
Oh yeah.
And then did we do another like?
Well, the Primal Scream had a lot to do with this, like you said.
Yeah, but I mean, I think this was other than that. But there was one because there was before that, and then because I remember you had said like, oh yeah, this because you had talked about this movie, and then you had talked about like the old Twilight episode movie, the Dummy or whatever it is.
Right.
And I went back and I watched that, and I watched this. This is one of those ones, like, my wife sat through this movie with me one of the times I watched it. I don't remember if it was the most recent time or if it was the last time. And she made it through it. She didn't like it, though, but I think that's just part of because it is dated a little bit. You know, it is from 1978, and this one almost falls in line with some of those other like mid to late 70s horror movies that were outside of the slasher genre, which I could see where some people could compare this to like Black Christmas or Alice, Sweet Alice, you know, some of those other ones that we've talked about that we don't enjoy. Because that's what my wife was. She's like, this is freaking boring. I'm like, what are you talking? This is great. Like, oh, this is boring as hell. I'm like, really? We both said The Exorcist is a boring as hell. So
yeah, you know, and I've heard people say Halloween is boring, which
oh yeah, my kids both think that Halloween is boring.
Yeah, I think that's horrible. I don't even like to hear that. But anyhow,
well, just to go to sidetrack to that just a little tiny bit, it's kind of funny with. I mean, we've beaten Halloween 2018 into the ground on this show. Sorry, guys. We are well aware that we've beat it into the ground, but
still got a few months before it's released.
Yeah, I know. But in the trailer, one of the things in the trailer is like, oh, you know, murdered 3 on Halloween in 1978, and you're like, 3? Really? That's lame.
Yeah, it kind of ruins Michael Myers' reputation from like the way we see him now. But that's funny. I was thinking the same thing. I want to say this though about Magic. When you mentioned that you wanted to do this one, I was like, I didn't really hop aboard in terms of like I wasn't excited to watch it. I was like, it felt kind of like, oh, I got to watch Magic, and I didn't really want to. And I was like, you know, I don't really have any. I mean, there's that like the whole story I just said about it, about like, you know, knowing about the book and all that, and the nostalgia of that part. And I was like, man, this is gonna be slow. This is gonna be a hard one to sit through. And I was like, kind of apprehensive about it. And then I finally, literally, I think I started watching it yesterday. Yeah, because I finished it today, halfway through the day. I was like really into it. And I was surprised how into the film I was because it is dated. It was a really well done film. I mean, like, just in terms of like, you know, as the story kind of unfolded, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, it's a good movie. So if you're not aware of what Magic is, I'm sure there's several people out there because this is one of those ones that, you know, we both belong to horror groups on various social media platforms. And I've only seen this one come up like maybe once or twice on Facebook, which is actually where I ended up buying the tape from because I've never seen the tape in the wild before. But as soon as I saw it on in the Facebook group, I was like, oh, I'll take that. You know, I watched this, I think, for the first time a year or maybe 2 years ago, whenever it was, 3 years ago. So there's probably people out there like, Magic, what the fuck are you guys talking about? So Magic is this. It's kind of weird that the name of the movie is Magic because it's not really. There's a little bit of magic in it, I guess, if you consider card tricks magic. So Magic is this character. His name is Corky. If you grew up in the 80s like we did and you watched, what was that show?
I know what you're talking about, but no, I don't
Yeah,
remember the name.
the name Corky is kind of
Life goes on.
yeah, life goes on. Yeah, Corky has kind of a negative connotation, so every time I hear that name, I'm like, oh, really? Come on, guys. But anyway, so you have this magician kind of guy played by Anthony Hopkins, and he's like having a hard time. His like mentor like dies or something, and so then he gets this act where he's a ventriloquist. So the whole like magic stuff kind of goes out the window, and then he's a ventriloquist. So then he like evidently becomes like uber famous and is going to get like this TV show and all this stuff. And then he kind of like has like a mental breakdown, and he goes off into the woods, and he ends up like renting a room at what is presumably like this girl that he went to high school with or something. Who he had the hots for. And then turns out that she had the hots for him, but it's one of these weird, like, oh, why didn't you say anything? Oh, why didn't you say anything? Oh, I don't know, let's do it now, kind of things.
Yeah.
And so there is part of the movie to where all of a sudden he's like super famous, but then he's hiding out in the woods, rolling around in the sheets with this girl that he went to high school with, who's played by Anne Margaret, who, if we were, before we were recording this episode, we were talking about another movie with another actress from back in the day who got nude. I won't name any names, but if you want any reason to watch magic, if you're not interested in seeing Anthony Hopkins do bad ventriloquist act, you can get this movie and watch it for the fact that you will get to see Anne Margaret naked. It's weird that it's like a good movie, because when you look at it on paper, it shouldn't be a good movie, but it's a good movie.
It is a good movie. Now, we have to go back. We have to reference that this is definitely very much influenced by Psycho. This is the whole concept of a split personality where basically this guy, Corky, he gets this ventriloquist act going, and this basically part of his personality becomes this ventriloquist dummy. And the dummy seems to be more like the possessive part of him, and even very similar to Norman Bates and his mother type of scenario. And and so that, I guess that was the one thing about this film that when I'm watching it, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, there's definitely a lot of Psycho going on here. And now Psycho, I will have to say, is definitely the superior film in terms of suspense and just the storyline itself. Whereas this one, it kind of lets you know what's happening pretty much right at the beginning. Like, there's no question, okay, he's part of his personality has gone into this dummy. And like the whole concept is that his agent, because he's starting to really make his way in the show business arena, and he doesn't want to sign the final contract because he doesn't want to have a medical exam because he knows there's probably something wrong with him. So he goes, and like you said, he goes off to this cabin on the lake type thing, and pretty quickly that he's in this, he's got this mental illness. I definitely saw the Psycho comparison right from the beginning, but unlike Psycho, where Psycho kind of unravels, where you figure it out, this movie lets you know everything right in front. But one question I had, I guess if I was to say, if I was going to give this film a criticism, was you never really know why. It seems like they kind of allude to his childhood a little bit, like when he goes back to his hometown and sees his old house and all that, but you never really understand what happened, how his mental illness began, or what triggered it. I bet you the novel probably dug into it a little deeper.
Yeah, that was one of the things too. It's one of these ones where there's just a certain aspect of it you just kind of accept.
Yeah.
It's not like a Child's Play or some of these other ones where it's really a killer doll, or you're like, is it a killer doll? Or is somebody behind that? It's pretty obvious throughout the whole thing that, oh, that dude's freaking nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no real explanation as to why. It's like, oh, hey, I'm famous. Oh, whoa. I don't want to do a test. That's not going to work out for me.
And then the beginning of the film too, he's kind of they're like throwing out flashbacks to one of his first times on stage trying to do a magic trick, and then he kind of, and that's the thing too. I assume that that's what really happened, like based on the flashback, is like you're seeing what happened. He kind of loses it because the crowd doesn't respond. So I think it kind of sets the tone that there's, he's not fully there. There's something wrong with him mentally. But again, it doesn't really go into the detail, like what happened. Did something happen to him? Was there a trauma? Was there, and that's okay. You don't. I think sometimes movies over-explain. So in a sense, that's good that they didn't like. Nowadays it's kind of funny. You would imagine like if for whatever reason somebody got a hold of magic and decided to like do something with that property, you'd get a prequel and like it would explain his early childhood and what happened and all that. But this kind of kept it in a little bit more in the dark, which was cool.
Oh yeah, you would have this whole. You would have like 4 prequels. There would be like Fats, who was the doll in this movie. It would be like his origin story.
His origin, yeah.
And then like a sequel to that, and then it would be like this Corky, like as a kid, and then like his grandpa, like, oh, Corky, let's go play the ventriloquist dolls in the back room.
Exactly. I think Anthony Hopkins, obviously, he's a great actor, and he really, really does a good job in this role. And like the whole back and forth between him and the dummy was great. I thought the scene specifically I thought was really good was the scene where the agent is sitting down with him and says, you know what, I think you've got a problem. I'm going to see if you can not use the dummy for at least 5 minutes, and if you can, then everything's fine. If not, then you need to go get like medical help. And he can't do it like past like 2.5 minutes or something like that. And that was pretty cool, I thought. Actually, I think I remember my mom talking about that scene.
Yeah, the only thing with that scene that bugs me is that he is so attached to that dummy and that he can't do that. Like, oh, like this is like his relief or whatever. And then the old guy is like, oh, dude, you're a friggin' nut job. I gotta leave, because this is in the 70s, so he's like, I gotta leave so I can go to town and make a phone call or whatever he was gonna do.
Yeah.
And so then Corky takes the dummy, Fats, with him out into the woods, chases the guy down, and then beats the guy to death with the dummy. You're like,
yes, he does.
What are you doing? Pick up a stick or something, dude.
Yeah, and he kills the agent. Then he kills the jealous boyfriend, who, it's funny. I was seeing that guy who, that actor, and I was trying to figure out who is that. He looks really familiar, and I thought, are you familiar with Breaking Bad, the TV show?
Yeah, I am. If we're talking about the same guy, like the Anne Margaret's like other guy.
Her husband.
Yeah. I was almost like. There for a long time, like the first time I saw that movie, and then at first when I was watching it the most recent time too, I was like, "Who is that? He's like in stuff now, isn't he?"
Well, he passed away, and I actually thought he was the brother-in-law in Breaking Bad, the cop guy.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, I don't know. I didn't think he was that guy. He had one of those faces though, to where he must have been in something like somewhat. Well, maybe not recent. I mean, we watch old movies all the time, but he just had one of those faces. So I was like, and I never did, and I didn't really look into it. So
yeah, I thought he was that guy. Just something about his face looked like that, but turns out he wasn't. He's not that guy. But he wasn't. He was in films like, he was in King Kong, 1976. That what's with Jeff Bridges and Jessica Lange. He was in The Rocketeer, which I never saw, and he was in Death Wish 3, which I never saw that one either. But so he kind of made his way around, and but he actually passed away in 2013. So it's kind of funny though. He did have that look like man, I've seen this guy before.
Yeah,
he must have been in a ton of stuff.
Yeah, he definitely had that look, and I'm sure he was. I'm sure he's one of those guys where he was in a ton of stuff. You always have a bunch of those guys in Hollywood. The that guy, those
That
guys.
guy. Yep.
You know, when you're like, oh yeah, that guy. Oh,
Yeah.
that guy. Oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm looking at his list right now, and he was in a ton of stuff like that was kind of hot in the 80s and 90s. So, but as like characters that we wouldn't really remember. Going back to the whole idea, is this a horror film? In today's standards, probably not. Like you said, it's more psychological thriller, and it is slow, but it really like progressed well. I thought, and I thought the story was really good. It's not like a favorite of mine or anything like that, and it's probably not something I'm going to revisit. But it was actually a really good, enjoyable film. I guess if to really categorize it as horror and really go in that direction, I think they should have maybe done a bit more of like the whole, like, you don't know what's going on between the dummy and him until the end, and don't reveal that it's a mental illness until the end. Whereas they kind of kept you knew that from the get go. I was surprised on how much I enjoyed this film. And one thing too is, I think you and I have talked about before. We're like, it would be really cool to find the definitive dummy movie, or horror doll movie. Like, because when you think of slashers, for me it's always obviously Michael Myers is kind of the definitive. Halloween is like, or Friday the 13th even, but what, there's always been like, well, what are they going to come out with the definitive dummy movie? Like, there's the Child's Play films. That's probably the one that the most go-to film. Then there's that Twilight Zone episode we talked about, and then there's this, and then there's the Dead Silence that came out in the early 2000s. But for me, in terms of ventriloquist dummy films, I'll always have like a soft spot for that movie called The Dummy, which was a short film, and I saw it when I was a kid, and it terrified the hell out of me. And that was the scariest dummy film I've ever seen. So if you get a chance, YouTube The Dummy. So I'm telling you all that are listening to this, that was terrifying. It's a bit dated, when you watch it now, but at the same time, that had me like completely terrified as a kid. So this film, I don't know. To me, I think like dummy films may not work in like a feature length film. I think maybe like a short film, it's a little scarier because less explanation. Like this film, obviously there's a lot of explanation, and once you know what's going on, you're not as scared.
Today's world too, I mean, when people think of ventriloquists, I mean, who are you thinking of? You're thinking of like, what's his face, Jeff Dunn or whatever? Is Walter and what is it, Ahmed the Dead Terrorist or whatever? I mean,
or you think of Slappy from Goosebumps.
Oh yeah, well, see, I don't see. That's the thing. My kids like missed out on the whole Goosebumps thing. But yeah, I can't think of any other like ventriloquist movies. I mean,
there is a movie that I would. Well, it's a film, but it was like a, what do they call those films where there's more than one story?
Oh, anthology.
Anthology. I think it's like it's a foreign film. It's like a European. I mean, it's in English though. It's called Scream Time, and I found it when I was young. When I was a kid, and I was obsessed with. And this is a whole another area we'll talk about later. But I was a big Jaws fan. So after Jaws, I wanted to see every movie that was like the copycat of Jaws. And one of the movies I watched all the time as a kid was Alligator. And when you rent Alligator, there was like a bunch of trailers at the end of it. And one of them was for this really low budget film called Scream Time. And the first story in Scream Time was about a puppeteer who wasn't a ventriloquist dummy. It was a like those old European Punch and Judy dolls. I don't know if you're familiar with those. They were like, it looked like a kind of like a court jester.
Oh,
and it was
okay.
Him and his wife, and they'd beat each other up all the time.
Marionette doll.
Kind of like a marionette, but it wasn't on strings. I think you actually stuck your hand in it. That story was like one of those, like another one of those dummy or like puppet killer films, and it had kind of a twist ending and all that. So that's another one on my personal list of like the dummy films. And there's also Dolls. That was one that we should probably hit eventually. That was from the 80s. That was like one of those probably straight to VHS films. I don't know if it ever went into the theater, but it was really well known for its gore.
And we've seen a couple of, we saw The Boy.
The boy. Yep.
at the in the movies like some old timey guy here.
In the theater.
Yeah, but and I've seen that one like once or twice since then, and it kind of goes back to with you and Krampus.
Is it growing on you?
Like, yeah, it's not bad at all. And
I've seen it. I've seen it only once since you and I saw it.
oh, so you have seen it multiple times though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, Lauren Cohan's in that from. I mean, we did an episode on it, but from The Walking Dead fame. But it's not that bad of a movie. So I think our whole, which this is a little sidetracked here, but maybe our whole like new horror sucks thing. Maybe. Well, no, I shouldn't go too far into that because the movie that we both hated from last year won an Oscar last year. So.
Ugh. I don't know if I'd call that horror though.
So, all right, guys. So I'm going to give this one a thumbs up. Like I said, I don't think that. And if you haven't seen this one before and you listen to this whole episode, well, you're not going to be shocked. But to cover ourselves with this, I mean, it's not really like much of a spoiler because I mean, there's nothing to spoil with this movie. It's not like it's like you had said. There's not like a big 5-minute flashback or a 10-minute flashback at the end of the movie where you're like, oh, ooh, that's what happened. But I give this one a big thumbs up. But if you haven't seen it, and I'm sure there's people out there that haven't seen Magic before, if you can find it, I would check it out. I don't know. This might be one of those ones where if you go on to Amazon or something, probably can't just rent it. You might have to buy it. Or I think we had talked about this beforehand. You might have to subscribe to another channel for a free trial to watch it. But you know what? It's worth it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm going to give this a thumbs up as well. I really enjoyed it. Enjoyed it more than I thought I would. And although it's an older movie, it kept me entertained, and definitely a thumbs up. I would recommend it.